Hello, this is Ethan Strickland, and I'm going to be going through the Mindful Way Through Depression. Um, this is for Michelle. Hello, Michelle. Hopefully you're listening to this, and it's not somebody who stole this from you. So I'm skipping over the first few parts. Just the first few parts of the first chapter, like 2 or 3 pages of it, because it's just it seems kind of unnecessary for us in particular. Sorry for the droning that's probably going to come with this. I'm doing laundry and I'm lazy, so I'm doing my best to block it out. But basically, this is going to start, the first couple chapters are going to start they're going to start with kind of a bit of an analytical look of how depression is developed in, the near history. So let's go ahead and start with where I'm going to start on chapter 1. When unhappiness turns into depression and depression won't go away. It's a subsection, some type. I love you, Michelle. Sorry, this is kind of boring. We shall get it. I should get to the humor. The humor is... It's 5 o'clock and I'm already tired. This is probably something you can listen to go to sleep, by the way. I shouldn't say that, but no, if you do that, then you'll go to sleep every time you think about this. It would be bad. It would be so bad. Okay. Depression is a huge burden affecting millions today and becoming more common in Western countries, as well as developing countries that are westernizing their economies. 40 years ago, depression struck people first on average in their 40s and 50s. Today, it's their mid-20s. Other statistics in the box on page 16 show the scope of the problems today, but none may be more alarming than the data showing that depression tends to return. At least 50% of those experiencing depression find that it comes back, despite the fact that they appear to have made a full recovery. After a second or third episode, the risk of recurrence rises to between 80 and 90%. People who first became depressed before they were 20 years of age at a particularly high risk for becoming depressed again. By the way, the whole recurrence thing just indicates that the treatment is actually not proper. That's why they're mentioning it. So don't fear that it's going to not work for you. And they're talking about it in 20 years anyways, so you would just kind of be cured for 20 years and then have to up your dosage or something and then switch your methods. But the idea is that this is not going to need that. So people who first became depressed before they were 20 years of age are at a particularly high risk for becoming depressed again. Hi, Michelle. What's going on here? As psychologists who have been involved in treating and researching depression for many years, 3 of us, Mark Williams, Zindel Segal, and John Teasdale, wanted to find out. The rest of this chapter, plus chapter 2, explains what science has learned about the nature of depression and unhappiness, and how that knowledge, once we banded together with our 4th author, John Kabat-Zinn, ultimately produced the treatment on which this book is based. So I'm going to go ahead and read the box on that it was mentioning earlier. The prevalence of depression today. Around 12% of men and 20% of women will suffer major depression at some point in their lives. The first episode of a major depression typically occurs in the mid-20s. A substantial portion of the people who experience substantial portion of people experience a first full episode in late childhood or adolescence or admissions. I'm going to stop reading this thing because it's just a bunch of statistics and I don't think it's important. If you want, I can read it later for you or bring it to you and show you. The box is called The Prevalence of Depression Today. You can look up all this if you really wanted to. Like, it's a Google search. Okay. It's just a bunch of statistics. I feel like it's going to bore everyone. Of course, my explanation isn't any better, but one of the most critical facts we learned was that there is a difference between those of us who have experienced an episode of depression and those who have not. Depression forges a connection in the brain between sad mood and negative thoughts, so that even normal sadness can reawaken major negative thoughts. This insight added a new dimension to our understanding of how depression works. Decades ago, pioneering scientists like Aaron Beck had the insight that negative thoughts play a leading role in depression. Beck and his colleagues made a huge leap in our understanding of depression when they found that mood was strongly shaped by thoughts, that it wasn't necessarily the events themselves that drove our emotions, but our beliefs about or interpretations of those events. So what it's saying is, it's like an event happens and how we choose to reflect that event in our mind, how we choose to react to it. Our own personal feelings towards it are based on our own thoughts towards it. That's why different people feel different things depending on, it's not like all deaths are, I'm going to say this is really bad, but so like people who are close to somebody are significantly sadder when that person dies than people who are not. Because despite the fact that that event is technically the same, it isn't the same to each other, to each of the people involved. And so when my hamster died, you and I would be sad, but the rest of the world would be like, Ethan, you don't have a hamster. And we would both be sad, but nobody else would be sad because I don't have a hamster. The premise is yeah, okay, so I'm gonna reread the last thing. Beck and his colleagues made a huge leap in our understanding of depression when they found that the mood was strongly shaped by thoughts, that it wasn't necessarily events themselves that drove our emotions, but our beliefs about or interpretations of those events. Now we know there is much more to the story. Not only can thoughts affect mood, but in those of us who get depressed, mood can affect thoughts in ways that can make an already low mood even lower. It doesn't require a traumatic loss for those of us who are vulnerable to plunge down into the spiral again. Even the kinds of everyday difficulties that many people shrug off can start the descent into depression or perpetuate unhappiness from day to day. Even more, as we'll see, this connection becomes so ingrained that sometimes the negative thoughts that lead to depression, I can't believe I did that, even more, as we'll see, this connection becomes so ingrained that sometimes the negative thoughts that lead to depression can be triggered by sadness, so fleeting or minimal that the person experiencing it is hardly aware of it. That reminds me of a lot of times for both of us. Or, well, just for me, but, I mean, when we both say, I don't remember, it's usually something like this. Continuing on, no wonder so many of us feel we can't pull ourselves out of the abyss, no matter how hard we try. We have no idea where the descent began. I feel like I said that in a weird way, but the entire that little paragraph sentence, just two sentences, was italicized, and I tried to. It just sounded like a OxyClean detergent bombs. Wow, sham, wow. Love you, Mish. Sorry, I'm going off on tangents. Unfortunately, continuing on. Unfortunately, our valiant efforts to figure out how we got there Unfortunately, our valiant efforts to figure out how we got where we are turn out to be a part of a complicated mechanism by which we get dragged down even farther. Why am I having so much trouble with that sentence, and why am I burping? Okay, continuing. The way in which our efforts to understand ourselves can lead to additional problems instead of solutions is a complex story. The way in which our efforts to understand ourselves can lead to additional problems instead of solutions is a complex story. That sentence is a complex story. Jesus. Okay. It starts with a fundamental knowledge of the anatomy of depression and its 4 key dimensions: feelings, thoughts, body sensations, and behaviors through which we respond to the events of life. Key to this understanding is how these different dimensions interact. Christ. Okay. I'm going to take a small break and go on to the next small portion of Chapter 1, The Anatomy of Depression, in another segment. I love you, Michelle. Hope this is okay. Sorry I keep stumbling. I will get better as we go on. This book is fucking long. Talk to you soon.